Every story's plot comes to a climax, a point in the story where the drama, if you will, comes to a peak, where the tension of the story is at its highest, and after it comes to a resolution. In the same regard, every sales call comes to a transition, a point at which the discovery is over, the plot is built, the problem is clarified, and now it's time to offer a solution. It's time to transition into a pitch, into a close. The transition is a key step in the sales process. It's where we transition from talking about the prospect's problems to talking about how they can solve them. The transition is also known as a tempo change, changing tempo from speaking 10% of the time in discovery to speaking 90% of the time in your pitch. Changing tempo from asking questions in discovery to making statements in your pitch. The transition is also where we close our first sale of the conversation. In every sales conversation, there are two sales that have to be closed. Number one is the solution, the method of the solution, the methodology of which solves their problem. And number two is the offering that you have, or the product or the service that your company offers that fits the methodology. Whether they work with this or not is a key statement you also hear me say 1,000 times during this lesson, because the transition is all about whether they work with us or not. We're selling the method of which we believe the prospect should solve their problem. I've said this in earlier modules of this phase and of this lesson, but in a sales call, our primary goal is to help them solve their problems. It's to help them take action and change the situation that they're in. And the transition is when we take our first step at doing so. See, in the intro, we humanize ourselves through small talk. And then we set the agenda to what the call is going to be. We say, we want to find out where you are, where you want to go, what's keeping you from getting there. And we find out that information in discovery. In discovery, we clarify the problem. We build our anchor points. We dismantle objections. But the transition is when we take all of the information of discovery and actually put it to use. It's when we say, hey, I now understand what your problem is. I have full clarity. And whether you work with this or not, this is what I think you should do to get out of it, to solve your problem. In the transition, what we're really selling is superior thinking and alignment in the methodology that will get them from where they are to where they want to go, independent of whether they work with us or not. And then in the pitch, what we do is we take that alignment and add our offering into it, so long that it fits. And today, we're going to go over that. Today, we're going to discuss how to transfer alignment in methodology in the transition from sales rep being you to prospect. It's going to be a good one. Today, we're going to go over that plot arc, the climax, and how to start to bring it to a resolution. I'm personally excited for it. I love the transition. It's my second favorite part of the sales call. Let's dive in. Roll intro. This is going to be a different type of lesson. On this lesson, let's actually go free flow for a little bit. I'm going to put away the bullet points, the notes, the frame that I took on this. I kind of know what we have to go over, if you will. And when I say kind of know, I really know what we have to go over. Let's start with what we don't want to do in the transition. The first thing we don't want to do in the transition is sell our product, sell our service. See, most reps, they get into transition and they think this is the perfect time for me to start pitching. And so if you look at the arc of a story, it kind of goes from increasing to climax and then straight to resolution. Vertical line. There's no descent down and there's no alignment. One of the ways to look at transition is that it gets alignment on what we believe the solution is with the prospect in a way that doesn't cost money. So let's say, for example, that we skipped transition in a sales call. Let's say that we only went for alignment on the service that we're offering. Let's say that we're selling a fat loss offer at $5,000. And we go through discovery and we get to the end of discovery, and instead of getting alignment on the methodology that we believe will help them, whether they work with us or not, we get into our product and our service. And so we go from asking them questions to then telling them how our product or service would exactly help them. And then at the end of that, we get into the close, which is saying it's $5,000. For them to agree that it's worth $5,000, they have to 100% agree that that type of methodology, our program, our service, our approach, they have to agree that that's worth $5,000. And getting alignment with something that costs $5,000 is much more difficult or tricky than getting alignment with something that is free. The cool thing about transitioning is that you get alignment on the methodology at a price tag that's free. It's very easy to get free alignment. So let's say, for example, that the offer or the service in this fat loss offer that we're selling is that we build out a diet plan and build out a workout plan and then create accountability for our prospects, peer-to-peer accountability, so that there's someone going through the program with them that is holding them to the diet and to the workout plan and making sure that they don't fall short. So workout plan, diet, and then accountability partner. Those are the three things that we have in our offering. In the transition, I could say, hey, prospect, whether you work with us or not, these are the three things that I think you need. Number one is I think you probably need to create a diet that works for you. Something that will, of course, help you lose weight, but something that you can ultimately stick to. What I see a lot of people do is try a diet and then get off it within a few days piece because it isn't something that works for them. It isn't something that they can consistently do. I also think number 2 is that you probably need a workout plan, something that is enjoyable, something that works for you, something that stimulates your brain and makes you want to work out every single day. If you're getting into workout plans that don't work for you, then you're going to burn out again within a week or two. And the goal of this is to create something that is a long-lasting, life-changing plan. The third part is until we create the discipline to do this on ourselves, I think you need an accountability partner. Whether you work with us or not, I think you need to find someone that will hold you accountable to holding these diet and workout plans to standard. Does that make sense? What are your thoughts on that? How do you think about that? And note that everything I just went over is exactly what we would have in our offering or service, but the difference is, since I'm saying whether you work with us or not, it's a free alignment solution, meaning all 3 things are not what I'm trying to sell them. All 3 things are what I'm telling them I think they need to do without a price tag. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to get alignment on that. I'm going to get them to admit that does make sense. I think that's exactly what I need and what I'm looking for. And once they say that's exactly what I need and what I'm looking for, all I do is say, great. Do you want to know how we would help you with that? And we get into the pitch. And in the pitch, all I do is take what we do and tie it to the transition that they already agreed they need. If we have alignment in the methodology, the solution that they need to change their problem, then getting alignment on the pitch that fits that methodology is quite easy. All we do is add a price tag to it. But if we don't transition, like most reps do, and we just get into pitch and then we close, the alignment of the methodology of solution costs whatever the program cost is. And so to get alignment has a price tag on it. And to get alignment with price tags, it's much more tricky or difficult than to get alignment with no price tag on it. So in the transition, the key word, the key phrase that I think makes a profound difference is saying whether you work with us or not. This is what I think you need to do. And I always look for 2 or 3 solutions, 2 or 3 actionables that they can take in order to change the situation that they're in. And I always look for 2 or 3 solutions because one actionable solution almost doesn't seem valuable. It almost seems too easy. We talked about buying pocket before and making sure that they're in that little zone where it's doable, but not on their own. If they only need to fix one thing, maybe they think they can do it on their own. More than 3 actionables to work on in the transition, it starts to feel like it's the other end, where it's like, that's a lot to do. I don't know if I can get all that done. I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if that's achievable. 2 to 3 actionables in the solution has always been a sweet spot where prospects feel they can get it done, like it can be done, like they can make this happen, like it's achievable, it's attainable, but they do need help. And so 2 or 3 actionables in the transition has always been the sweet spot for what I've looked for. There's not many other cardinal sins that I see other sales reps make beside trying to pitch their program or service in the transition. And again, trying to pitch the program or service in the transition is just at that point starting your pitch. You're not even transitioning. Now that you know what not to do, let's go over what makes a proper transition. It all starts with the end of discovery. As soon as we're done with discovery, we've hit our 5 or 6 or 7 topics that we mentioned before. The last question we want to say or get into is, Paul, I think I have everything I need to know. I guess I don't really have too many other questions. Is there anything else that you think we need to go over that we haven't already? And really what we're doing there is asking if there's anything that they wanted to say that they haven't said already. Anything on top of discovery that they want to add on. Normally you're not going to get any kind of extra feedback from that. But then after that question, we ask them a super simple question. It's called a permission to proceed sequence. We go somewhere along the lines of, well, great, where do you want to go from here? I can break down the program for you. I definitely have some thoughts I'd love to share with you based on everything you share with me. And the psychology behind that line is that we're giving them the ball. The ball is now in their court. And when they have the ball, the first thing they want to do is give it back to us. People don't want to actually be in control of the sales process. They just want to feel like they're in control. And so this is called permission to proceed. And what it does is it reduces the resistance for the rest of the process as we get into it. So we give them the ball and we say, hey, where do you want to go? We can go here, here, and they always choose the second option. So human psychology works. When there's 2 options, the latter is almost always chosen. So we always say at the latter option, I definitely have some thoughts that I could share with you that I would love to share based on what you shared. And if we did our discovery correctly, by the time that we say, I have some thoughts I'd love to share with you, they're pleading for it, they're begging for it, because we're at the climax of that plot, we're at the top of that arc. See, if we did our discovery correctly, we increased the tension on the board. We built so much tension in the sales call that they're looking for relief. They've been speaking to this therapist, if you will, for 20-something minutes, talking about the pain that they're in and where they want to be. So when the therapist says, can I give you some advice? The first thing they're going to say is, yes, please. And then that advice is the 2 or 3 actionables. Whether you work with us or not, I think this is what you really need to do. And we go through that. And those actionables will change depending on what industry you're in, on what offer you're in, on any kind of nuance. What you'll find is that you'll start to speak to a lot of prospects that have close to the same kind of problems. And so you'll recycle, if you will, your actionables. You probably have 6 or 7 actionables that you tend to give to people. 2 or 3 of them are going to be the most applicable. And so you'll get very good at this in time. Those actionables can change. If it's fat loss, it could be diet plan, workout plan, accountability. If it's a B2B offer for chiropractic, you could say, hey, realistically, whether you work with us or not, I think the first thing you need to do is start running more ads or changing the offer on the ads that you're running or hiring a CA so that you have someone who can do the follow-up for you. Whatever the actionable steps are to solve the problem, that's what you say. You say, hey, realistically, this is what you need to do to solve your problem. And after you have experience in the industry you're in, or if you've had experience before doing what you're doing, those actionables come quite easily. If we don't have experience in the industry we're in, that's why our transition will be a little weaker. I told you in our last lesson, the sales reps who do the best could start a business in that industry because they understand it so well. This is where that really comes to fruit. Not only can the reps like that ask deeper questions, but they can give way better feedback and they can give actionables that logically make so much sense. And they can deliver it in a way that shows people they know what they're talking about. Now, again, if you don't have experience, that's fine. You just have to deliberately research and make efforts to gain that experience as quickly as possible. And over time, of course, your sales calls will also give you experience. But we give 2 or 3 actionables. And after those actionables, we simply ask, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with that? We ask 2 or 3 questions, all pretty much the same thing. What are your thoughts? Do you agree? But we give our 2 or 3 actionables. And after we give our 2 or 3 actionables, we actually do what's called a double tie down. We ask the same question almost twice, if you will. Now, a quick little concept for you guys. A double tie down is when you ask something twice because the first time is a repetitive pre-programmed answer. If I say, do you agree, that normal answer would be yes. If I say, what are your thoughts on that? It causes them to have to expand. And so when I get to the transition, I'll ask for permission to proceed. Hey, where do you want to go from here? Do you want me to break down the program? I definitely have some thoughts I'd love to share. If you're okay with that based on what you shared, okay, great. This is what I think you need to do, whether you work with this or not, and 2 or 3 actionables. And then I do a double tie down. Do you agree with that? What are your thoughts on that? And what I'm looking for is complete alignment. I'm looking for them to say, that's exactly what I've been looking for, Paul. I really agree. I haven't thought about it that way, but I think that's exactly what I need to do. If I do a double tie down looking for alignment and I actually feel hesitancy, then I have to make sure that we have alignment before I keep moving on. If I hear I guess that makes sense, or well, what I actually have to do is I have to circle back and be like, it sounds like you don't completely agree. Which part of it do you think is off? And if that hesitancy comes out, we actually have to circle back. We treat that like an objection. This is actually technically an objection. It's a roadblock from us moving forward in the process. Most people think objections are objections after we try to close a deal. No, objections can come out at any point of the sales process. And hesitancy in the transition is a really good time to bring out objections. Those are uncertainty-based objections. Those are objections that after we pitch and close would be them thinking, I don't know if this is for me. I don't know if that's going to work for me. I don't know if that's what I'm looking for. We have to have 100% alignment in the methodology that we're trying to sell them on and close them on in order for us to have a chance at closing the deal on our service or offering. And so in the transition, we need 100% alignment. Now, after we have alignment, then we simply ask one more question. Cool. Well, do you want to know how we'd help you with that? And that question is actually the transition from transitioning into the pitch. That's the last question of the transition, the second to last question. And what you'll see is they always say, yes, that'd be great. That sounds awesome. And your last question is what's called a pre-frame to the close. And it goes along the lines of, great. Well, I guess my last question would be, I'll break everything down. I'll walk you through everything A to Z. It's the same language you used in the setting the agenda part of the intro of the call. I guess my last question would be, I'll walk you through everything, answer everything A to Z. At the end of this though, is it crazy to think you'd be ready to rock today? Or out of this world to think you'd be ready to rock today? And what we're doing is actually getting a no-based answer to say, no, it's 100% thoughtful to think that I'd be willing to do something today. And the cool thing about both of these pre-frames are that they use no-based answers to get a yes, and they give tie downs for objections on, let me think about it later in the call, and I'll break that down. The first concept here is getting a no for a yes. And there's actually a video later in this series called The Power of No. So I'll expand on the idea or the concept more so. But the word no is a really easy word to get. And so we can actually use that in sales calls to our advantage. A lot of people, a lot of sales reps are scared of the word no. They think it's a bad word, but a good rep knows how to use the word no to their advantage, to their leverage. And so what we're doing here is by getting a no, we're getting a yes. Is it out of the world to think you'd be ready to rock today? No means yes. No, it's not out of the world at all. Of course, I'm willing to do something today, is what that means. Let's pretend for a second we weren't trying to get a no, but we were trying to get a yes. Just to see how much more confrontational this is, imagine asking a prospect at the end of transition, great, I'll walk you through everything. I'll answer your questions A to Z. Are you ready to buy something right now? The first thing you're gonna get from the prospect is immediate hesitation because they're not aligned. They're not 100% ready to rock. So they're gonna do anything they can to say, whoa, it depends. I would have to think about it, or I would have to make sure the numbers work out, or I would have to do, they're gonna throw out what's called smoke screens, objections. Yes is a very hard thing to get in a sales call because yes requires full alignment. You get into neutrals and then you get into no's, and we'll talk about this again later in the series in the advanced topics phase. But when someone says something, it's very counterintuitive in their unconscious in psychology to want to go against what they said. People want to be consistent with who they say they are. And so if someone says, no, it's not crazy to think that I'd be ready to do something today, then at the end of the call, when it's time to do something, they already said it's not crazy to think that I would. And so they want to be consistent with that. This pre-frame is super powerful for avoiding what's called the let me think about it objection, which is an objection that anyone in sales that hasn't gone through proper training knows is absolutely killer. After having done thousands of call reviews, when someone says the objection they get is a let me think about it objection, the first thing I ask is, did you pre-frame the call? And almost any time they get that kind of objection, I told you at the beginning of this phase that there are 3 lines in the sales call that are incredibly important for us just to make sure is in every single call. The first is setting the agenda. The second is pre-framing the call. Pre-framing the call, I'll just give a quick little story. I remember when I used to have my own agency, there was 2 weeks where I just kept getting hit with the let me think about it objection. And I couldn't understand why. And I had a friend review a call just one time and he said, you didn't pre-frame it. And I don't know why, I just missed that. For 2 weeks, I just missed the fact that I wasn't pre-framing my calls. First call after that, immediately closed. No, let me think about it. And then after that, it was pretty much extinct. The pre-frame is something that most reps don't do, but it makes a world of change. And it's as easy as asking this question. Is it crazy to think that you'd be ready to rock today? And let's say that they don't fall into consistency bias. And at the end of the call, they say, I would have to think about it. Let me think about it. I'd have to get back to you tomorrow. What we've given ourselves is called a tie down. We have something to refer back to that happened earlier in the conversation that they said that allows us to have leverage to handle that objection. When they say, I would have to think about it, we can now rebuttal with, hey, totally understand. Is it cool if I ask a question? Yeah, absolutely. Well, earlier in the conversation, you said that it wasn't crazy to think you'd be ready to rock today. So I'm just wondering what's changed, what's different, where along the process did we lose alignment? See, if you don't have that tie down, then it's really hard for you to combat the let me think about it. You have to get into all the sales lines that everyone's heard of. Well, what is there to think about? Thought is instant. All these terrible objection handling techniques. But in reality, the only way to prevent the let me think about it objection, the only way to handle it effectively is by saying, hey, you said this earlier. What's changed? And the only way we can do that is if we pre-frame the call. So in the transition, it's very simple. It's a fundamental process. Permission to proceed to begin with. Hey, where do you want to go from here? Here's the ball. It's in your court. They want to give it back. Yeah, please give me some thoughts. I'd love to hear your feedback. Great. Here are 2 or 3 actionables. Whether you work with us or not, these are things that I think you need to do. If we feel full alignment, then we move on. And if we don't feel full alignment, then we loop back and get full alignment. But we don't transition out of the transition into the pitch until we have full alignment. We end the transition by saying, great, do you want to know exactly how we'd help you with that? Yes, please. I'd love to. That's exactly why I'm here. Well, I guess my last question is, I'll break everything down and I'll walk you through everything A to Z. Is it crazy to think you'd be ready to rock today? Is it out of the world to think you'd be ready to rock today? No, not at all. The other answer to the pre-frame, instead of saying no, is they can say yes. They could say, yeah, it is crazy to think I'd be ready to rock today. Yeah, I'm not willing to do anything today. And that's completely cool. Not everyone's going to be willing to take action. Probably 10% of the clients or prospects you speak to are going to say, yeah, it is crazy. I'm not going to do anything today. And that's fine. We don't want to freak out. In fact, all we do is we change the tie down from going from action to decision, because we can still work with a decision tie down. We can say, hey, totally get it. I guess what I'm really asking is that there are 3 things you can say at the end of this. Number 1 is you can say, yes, hell yeah, let's do this. And of course, I love that. But number 2 is you can also say no. You can say, hey, this isn't what I'm looking for. This isn't something that I think would work for me. And it's completely cool. I'm a big boy. You're not going to hurt my feelings. The one thing that I want to avoid today, if it's cool with you, is that wishy-washy, let me talk to my pillow, let me talk to my hand reader and see if it's the right thing. Let me think about it kind of answer. The thing that gets us nowhere. If it's cool with you, I'd like to make an agreement just to stay to yes or no, but avoid the wishy-washy, let me think about it, let me sleep on it answers. Is that cool with you? And what you're gonna do is you're gonna get people to agree to say yes or no, which is a decision. And that decision of yes or no is action, like we talked about before. We talked about that in the first module of this phase. Decisions lead toward action. And so we can't get them to agree toward action right away. We get them to agree toward a decision, which is the root of action. Either way, we have it tied down. If we get to the end and they say, let me think about it, we can say, hey, totally get it. And so is it cool if we stick to that yes or no like we agreed on? And if we don't have that, then we have nothing to combat that let me think about it down the road. After that, after they say, yeah, it's not crazy to think I'd be ready to rock today, we get into the pitch, which is our next lesson. The transition, it's simple. It is where experience comes in outside of discovery. The cool thing about sales is you can come in, you can rock a pitch and a close pretty easily when you're brand new to sales. The discovery and the transition, that's where craft expertise comes in. That's why the best reps in the industries know their industries like the back of their hand to a top degree. And so it's really just like you're learning about all the frameworks and techniques and tactics in this program. You want to understand your industry just as well. The next lesson is on the pitch, transitioning from transition to the pitch, just like we would on a sales call. The pitch is legitimately actually my least favorite part of a sales call. I think it's the easiest part of a sales call. I think it's candidly the part as a new sales rep where you can come in and just rock them right away. But that said, that's the next lesson. That's what we're going to get into. And I'm still excited to see you there. But until then, happy hunting.